Part 18. The framers did not base the Constitution on Scripture. The people who claim the Constitution is based on the Bible or found in the Bible are, plain and simple, gaslighting you. And the evidence is very clear. A little context. Theocracy-centric Americans like to claim proof texting to, quote, prove, unquote, our government is based on the Bible, but we can see for ourselves that this is true. After all, if the framers really based the Constitution on the Bible, they would have at least mentioned the scriptures they used, right? Now, there are three places where we would expect to find proof: Farron's Reports of Proceedings from the Convention, the Federalist Essays, or in Eliot's Debates, which is a record of the state debates over ratification. It turns out, who knew? The colonists knew shorthand and took down all of these debates. We have a great deal of confidence that these are accurate records, word for word, of what was actually said at the time. These are all contemporaneous records, made at the time. So this is 5,120 pages of very, very reliable testimony. Let's take one example of many: the idea of separation of powers. A simple Google search of theocracy-centric websites shows several different scriptures that supposedly were the basis for the idea of separation of powers. We can see, looking at this, the main scripture is Isaiah 33:22. In the King James translation, which was the most common version in the colonies in 1787, Isaiah 33:22 says, "For the Lord is our judge, the Lord is our lawgiver, the Lord is our king, he will save us." One site, the James Madison Quotes website, claims Madison discovered the idea of separation of powers from this verse. And we find this claim in a very large number of theocratic sites. But this is a myth. James Madison never said this at all. Nobody claimed they used Isaiah 33:22. And we can prove this. As a general observation, it's unlikely that Madison, a probable deist and an extraordinarily clear political thinker, would discover separation of powers in this scripture. That's because Isaiah 33:22 says exactly the opposite. Looking in context, Isaiah clearly says that all power and authority are contained in the Lord. The Lord is everything: the lawgiver, the judge, and our king. There are multiple roles, but the Lord, the king, fills all three in his person. This was very common, by the way, in ancient Middle Eastern cultures. This was not unique to the Bible. And kings, as the new Americans had just fought a revolution about, do not share power or have elections. They are not democrats. Now, we can trace a textual argument back further as far as we want to go. The vast majority of non-theocracy Bible commentators have a completely different view of Isaiah chapter 33. And of course, Montesquieu gets dragged in as well. But let's not go down that particular rabbit hole. That would eat up way too many hours. We want to answer a simpler question. Did Madison or any framer ever say they had based the separation of powers on Scripture? And how much did any framer cite these scriptures? As it turned out, the framers did not cite the scriptures at all. First, we searched the Farron Report of Proceedings, a word search of the 55 days, 672 pages of the debates in the convention, show nobody cited the Bible, Deuteronomy, Isaiah, or Jeremiah. None. There are 4 citations of Samuel, but these all turn out to be delegates' names. So let's look at the Federalist Essays. These were written by Hamilton, Madison, and John Jay. Here we have 85 essays, 180,000 words to search through. And again, there are none. Now, the convention was not open to the public, but the essays were written to sell the new government to the country, and the country was religious. If they got the idea for the Constitution from Scripture, they would have been crazy not to say that, and they did not. That's a washout. But let's not give up. Surely in the great national and state ratification debates, where the Federalists had to explain verbally, in public, to an audience of believing Christians where these provisions had all come from, they would have made sure they cited Scripture as a basis. And here we have 3,084 pages of text in Eliot's Debates. And yet again, once again, we come up with 0. There is no mention of the Bible, of Deuteronomy, Isaiah, etc. While there are some Jeremiahs and Samuels, again, those are people's names, not books. There is no way around it. From their own words, the framers simply did not, in any significant way, develop or discover the idea of separation of powers from Scripture. This is scriptural wishful thinking disguised as historical fact.